The New Jersey, I call this meeting to order. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has given adequate notice of this meeting by having published the date, time, and place of this meeting in the Home News Tribune, and has posted notice of this meeting at the Highland Park Middle School, 330 Wayne Street, Highland Park, New Jersey. Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Here.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Here.
Ms. Bull?
Here.
Mr. Dietz? Ms. Hughes?
Here.
Ms. Pointer-Titus?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Scherber?
Here.
Mr. Sherman?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and executive sessions for September 23rd, 2013?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Pointer-Titus?
Stay.
Mr. Ross?
Abstain.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, Linda, were there any communications?
I believe that there were one or two emails the board received since the last meeting from members of the public, and also a letter was distributed tonight from another member of the public, which you just received, so I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it.
Thank you. Tim, could we have the superintendent's report, please?
First, the enrollment for this school year currently sits at 1,586. Last year, for the 12-13 year, it was at 1,534. So we've seen about a student enrollment increase of about 50 students from last year to this year so far. I did want to also have Joanna Bernstein recognized for Science Works. Is she in the audience? I don't know if you wanted to say a few things about the program and share with, if you'd like to come up to the podium.
Do I need to say my name and do that?
Yeah, please state your name. Well, yeah, again. And
Joanna Bernstein. What else do I say? Oh, 42 Cliff Court, Highland Park, New Jersey. Is it on? The after-school science program that I have designed along with some of my, well, let me start from the beginning. This program is called the World Works. We're calling it the Science After School program. We changed the name slightly. But the program is based on a series of workshops that my students at Rutgers did for the third grade students at Bartle Elementary on energy and electricity. And because of the popularity of that program, which we're continuing to do this year, we decided that maybe we should expand it and include some of the other grades. So with the help of the Rutgers Foundation, we found a small foundation called the Dupree Family Foundation, who was interested in funding the after-school science program so that we could include students from all grades. So we didn't get the full amount of funding, we did get some of the funding, and it's enough to do this program for, we think, 2 years. So the first session is going to start hopefully next week with the help of some of the teachers from Bartle, we hope, and some of the Noyce scholars who are part of the Rutgers Masters It's a combined bachelor's and master's program, and all of these students are either chemistry or physics students who are also getting a master's in education, or a certificate in education. I think some of them are getting masters. But all of the Noyes scholars are committed to working in Title I districts, and they've had a lot of experience already. So we have 2 of those working with the program as well. And that's it.
Thank you. So again, this is a great opportunity for our students, and another opportunity at Bartle to have a greater level of enrichment for the students there. The next piece, we've had some conversations in reference to it's starting to get a little bit colder, and so we included in your packets the brochures to inform everyone in the district about lice, bed bugs, and flu. So we will be sending out some informational guides to everyone, and we're just looking for some feedback from the board as far as whether or not you have a preference on which ones we send. There are some that are more graphic than others, showing bites and different bugs or different. Can you get them on?
I like the bed bugs one. That seemed informative and appropriate. The New York City one.
Okay.
I did.
I think that seemed like the best one to go for that issue. And the head lice one as well.
Okay.
The one right there.
Other comments?
I also like the New York City bed bugs.
Yeah.
Brochure.
I think they've had a little experience with the issue. And the flu one as well, from the CDC.
Okay.
I think those are the best to go home and just as an informative tool for all of our families. It makes the schools a little bit safer.
Any other comments? Concerns about them going home? Questions?
Will they be translated to Spanish?
That's a good question. Yeah, we did. I think at the last board meeting have a translator that was hired, and so that we'll make sure that gets done before it goes out. Okay. So the next topic is we've been looking into at Bartle the conversation about tracking. Currently, they're building track students from 3rd to 5th grade in up to 5 levels, 5 different classifications. And we started reviewing this because it's a practice that has largely died out in the country because of the negative impacts that it has on students and about the opportunities that is limiting. We've done this in conjunction with a review of report cards, looking at what are we actually reporting to parents, looking at what does a check minus really tell you about student learning, or what does an A really tell you, and trying to get a better understanding of what's our purpose, what should we be communicating, and what's going to be informative for parents so that you're able to monitor your students' learning as they progress throughout the year. And this has been done on a pretty large spectrum, looking at the services that we provide, special education, all the way across to the services that we provide gifted and talented. And trying to get, for me, a better understanding of why the decision was made to move to tracking to begin with, and then reviewing the data that's been produced and trying to identify what's a systemic way that we can actually make sure that all students can maximize their learning, that all students, when they go into a classroom, aren't limited by standards, by only learning 3rd grade standards in 3rd grade, or by being placed in groups where they're not able to make the most out of their opportunities. And one of the examples that I've been using is, if you have some people that are stronger in algebra than geometry, or some people are stronger in geometry than algebra, and when we have a system of tracking in this manner, students at different levels don't get necessarily the same information based on the track that they're put in. And so we're limiting opportunities for the students within the Bartle system. So this really came about because I started having conversations with the teachers at Bartle, and trying to get what their perception is. They work with these students every day. They've done this now for a series of years. So we have data that we can use to see whether or not this practice has increased student achievement, whether it's decreased student achievement. And from the review that I've done, we had no teachers that voiced support of the current system of tracking. And that's unique because I've never done a survey or had a conversation anywhere where it's unanimous. Usually there's different opinions that can identify, well, this is a strength or this is something that I think is beneficial. Some of the data that we have, right now Bartle is in the 44th percentile statewide, which means that on a statewide basis, Bartle is below average on those state assessments. In addition to that, over the course of this practice being implemented, more students have decreased their performance levels than increased. So we're actually seeing declining test scores. There's an equal distribution across gender, race, economic status, special education, even measuring the time in district and student attendance. When you take all those factors into consideration, the trend is there's nothing that correlates with one and the other. You're still seeing very similar trends across all of those demographics. And then when we're looking specifically, there's a data set provided by the state that measures students, and to me this is the most important one, and it's the measure of growth. And so it categorizes low growth, medium growth, and high growth for students. Currently, the fifth graders had 39% of the students in high growth, 44% of fourth graders in high growth, and so what that essentially means is that they're being outpaced by peers in the county and around the state, and these are the numbers that add up to that below average ranking. And that means that our students are not making growth at a fast enough rate to be above average at this point. I went a little bit further, not just taking the state data, but I actually went in and pulled the information based on economic status and the groupings, looking at the actual groupings of students. And there are two categories that you can see that we're essentially grouping students by. The first is ethnicity. You can see the much higher percentage of white students in certain classes and much higher ethnic students, Hispanic being the largest portion in the lower performing classes. And the other one would be economic status. That children coming from poverty are being clustered into these lower tracks, and essentially when we're looking at the data trends across time, you're not seeing that they're making the growth that not even some of their peers are making, but it's not keeping up to average growth within our own district, let alone across the state. So with all of that taken into consideration, we've been looking at what's the best option for students, what's the best option not just for the current students, but from a systemic practice. And so this is looking at pre-K-12. The goal is to ensure that every child in every class doesn't have limits, that we're not tracking them, putting them into a position where they are limited in their learning. And so what our intent is at this point is that we're going to group the students within their homerooms, that they're going to be differentiated for within those classes, that we are going to make sure that there's extra efforts and services provided for students that are deficient, and that there's going to be opportunities for enrichment and acceleration as we move forward. And so I ended up with roughly 15 parent contacts, and it was about 1/3 to 2/3 as far as the impact. And I asked the same question for the parents that I talked to, which is, give me information that would put me on the other side. What's the other side of this argument? Because everything that I've looked at, it makes this pretty one-sided. And most of the concerns I heard were, the concept of tracking or grouping these students by class was based on the concerns of not meeting the needs of all children, that their children were not being challenged within the classes, that they were being capped. They weren't giving those opportunities to really excel. And so, again, that's as much of a concern for me that we would be capping children's learning on the high end as it is of not providing enough opportunity for students on the other end and every child in between. And so we're in the process of putting together a comprehensive plan to make sure that every child can grow at their level, make high growth, make significant gains, and that we're not limited by grade level standards, but that we're truly individualizing instruction. And so that's a large task that's going to be not just the structures that we put in place, it's going to be based on making sure we're providing the right professional development, making sure that we're, as a district office, providing the supports, the information that teachers need, providing systems for teachers to look at it. And I will tell you, right now we're deficient in how it is that we measure students, that we don't do a good job of making predictions. And we don't make a good job of making predictions because right now in Bartle we're using 5 different ways to assess reading, all by different grade level, which means you can't track students longitudinally, and the information in third does not correlate directly with what they're getting in fourth. So, there are a lot of challenges in this. Essentially, at the end of the day, what this is going to come down to is that there's a new set of standards, and those set of standards don't necessarily match, what our current practice is. We haven't been proactive in the fact that these standards have been a couple years out, that there have been major changes in standards, all of them moving down, where 5th grade standards have been dropped into 3rd grade. And so we have to make sure that we're making that change, that students are being taught what that standard is and being backfilled with the concepts and the skills that are needed in order to be successful. And that's not just going to be the case for the lowest students, that's for all students, because there is now a gap in education because the curriculum was not adjusted to make sure that students had access to it or that it was being provided. And so although this may seem like a radical change, this is the process of curriculum alignment. This is making sure that we have assessments which are aligned to those standards so that teachers have predictors, can address individual student needs, and plan lessons that are engaging to students at all levels, okay, from the fastest learner to the students that struggles with specific concepts and everyone in between. That we're providing for sponge activities, rigorous activities at the end of a concept that allows them to enrich. That if I have a 3rd grade student that masters that information, that we have opportunities for them to continue to learn, that they're not sitting idle. And so this is a major transition in how it is that we deal with students, the expectations we have for students and teachers, and we're raising the bar for what we expect from everyone. The goal is at the end of this year that we have a system that meets the needs of every kid, that we have structures in place, and this is really going to be the first one. Creating a structure that allows for students to progress at their rate, and again, ensuring that both ends of the population are served as need be. That's the last thing on my report.
Okay. Could we have the student update, please?
We'd like to inform you that our school has elected a new student congress, which is trying to implement some changes in the school. These new officers are Emmett Brennan, President, Harry Landis, Vice President, Sarah Chang, Secretary, Chris Su, Treasurer, Grace Chong, Grade Liaison. Additionally, Student Congress is trying to promote a new Park Pride campaign with a goal to make sure students are more engaged in the school's activities. Because of this campaign, our Spirit Week hallway themes this year are arts and music, sports, service, and academics. Also, Congress is trying to promote the sporting events around the school, flyers and more announcements so as to raise pride. Teachers are encouraged to be more engaged as well and to support the students at the events.
We'd also just like to inform you all that the homecoming dance will be scheduled for October 18th at 7 p.m., followed by the homecoming game the following day on Saturday the 19th at 1 p.m. And in order to further promote the whole Park Pride campaign that's being introduced, there are being points rewarded to each grade for attending the dance, and also at the homecoming game, it'll also be almost like a family day. So the people who attend are encouraged to bring their younger siblings and any other family members, where the high school students some of them will volunteer and partake in activities like face painting or caricature drawings. And basically, like, the whole purpose of this is to raise more pride. And also, the Student Congress is hoping to try a blackout game where all who attend the game are encouraged to wear a black shirt, and this is basically showing that we can work as a community to do something together and to raise more pride as a whole. And apart from the homecoming game and dance, the PSAT is going to be administered to all sophomores and juniors on Wednesday the 16th, and the freshmen and seniors will then come to school at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. and where they will be, the Teen Center will sponsor like mental health awareness activities for them. And yeah, we just wanted to inform you of these events.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a report on violence and vandalism? Or no? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. I don't know how many of you want to speak. If everybody were going to speak, I would ask that you just limit your comments to a couple of minutes, and then we could always revisit. But anyway, when you come up to the podium, and if you could sign your name, and state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tavlu Momensa. I am a Highland Park High School student, and my address is 215 Dartmouth Street.
Hi, I'm Oscar Lee, and my address is 444 Donaldson Street.
Okay, so basically we're here today to bring to the Board of Education's attention the recent change in advisors for the DECA chapter for the high school. And DECA is basically a group that focuses on business and community service in the high school. We've raised thousands of dollars over the past 3 years for causes such as the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation, Make-A-Wish Foundation, and the New Jersey Food Pantry. And basically, DECA started in 2008 with our advisor, Miss Angie Harper, who created it along with 2 other students. And 2 years ago, Miss Wilson was introduced to DECA to be a co-advisor.
Okay. So basically, what's happened recently, Miss Harper has recently submitted a form to resign, and we think that this is going to negatively impact DECA. As Ms. Wilson, our other advisor, has shown several times that she doesn't really possess the responsibilities or...
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Please don't comment on
okay, sorry.
staff.
So we just think this is going to affect the club negatively in that it's going to provide a huge burden on the remaining advisor.
So, in closing, we would just like to propose to the Board of Education that Ms. Harper be reinstated as the DECA advisor in order to allow the club to continue to flourish and have a positive community, have a positive impact on the community.
Thank you.
Just as a note, no, you can go up. Just as a note, though, the resignation has been struck from the agenda, and that the resignation has been rescinded.
Hi, Trish Sanchez, 147 North 8th Avenue. It's really weird being on this side, but really nice being on this side.
I like you on this side better.
So I'm here Just to echo what Oscar has said, and my son and all of his colleagues and his students are here. I know that you mentioned that she has rescinded, so I'm hoping when you get to personnel, you'll take out number 3 or vote no. But also, and I know you can't talk about personnel issues, I know that from experience as well. But please do consider not just taking this out, but having her reinstated as an advisor. Because the kids are very passionate about the organization. I think a lot of it has to do with Angie Harper. So I thank you if you please withdraw this, but also please reconsider reinstating her as advisor. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish.
Hi, I'm Daphne Robinson.
Hi, Mary Botiam.
And we're parents at Bartle, and we're both, we've been working with a bunch of people, other parents and members of the community who are interested in starting a Lego engineering and robotics programs. And since last week you had some board members discuss this and were interested and had some questions about the program, we put together some information and distributed to the board. I wasn't sure if you had time to look at this since we sent it very last minute, and I apologize for that. But the 2 questions that were brought up by board members last time was, one, what the out-year's cost would be if we do the program in-house, and the first year cost would be to buy all the material and to pay for the teacher in the first year, and after that we only need to pay for the teacher. We have the site license, we have the Lego pieces, the license for the software to allow to build the robots, and all the activity packets, all the teacher notes, the curriculum that comes with that. That's a one-time purchase in the first year. The exact numbers are in the letters that we sent. We also got some quotes from outside vendor because somebody else had suggested that as an opportunity, and there are some people who do that. We have quotes from 2 different groups. One couldn't do a robotics program if they came to Bartle. They couldn't bring laptops and all that. It would be pure engineering and playing with Legos, building with Legos. And the other one would be, the other could bring laptops and everything, actually have a robotics program. They're using a slightly different system, which is the one that's geared for middle school and elementary and high school students. But they say it works for 7 and up. So, and that, of course, if you go with the outside vendor, it's much easier, especially in the parents. And but but then you have the same cost every year you have to pay them the full cost.
And the outside vendors actually don't offer the components, the structure, the themes that we really do think would be most effective for the 2nd to 5th grade levels to really get the kids' attention. We think it should have a robotics component. So it's not really apples to apples. So we really do hope that we're able to get this in place. We think it would be all the research, as you guys know, getting this engineering and robotics down to the elementary school level is really critical. Waiting to high school, you miss half the boys, half the girls. We have to really get it down soon.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for doing the legwork.
I have a question.
Hey, Mary. Mary?
I have a question. What's the cost to the district? I see the paper. I have the paper.
Yeah, I saw.
It's on the second page. That's what I'm looking
In
at.
red.
Yeah, so the cost, if we're doing it in-house,
Total in-house.
would be about $2,258 for the first year, $500 for future years, just covering the teacher. We're working with the high school robotics team, Malamar Harani and Aaron, and we're also working with people at Rutgers who could, and we're going to have some donations of laptops. And the cost for the outside vendor, the group that did absolutely no robotics, would be about $3,000 for a similar program, 10 weeks. Would be $3,200, and the other one that would do a robotics program, but it's not the one that Lego recommends it for older kids, not for elementary school kids. That would be $4,380.
So, and who's the advisor going to be? For Bartle. Who's going to be the faculty advisor?
We do not have an advisor. The program has not been approved, and we do not have a formal advisor.
Right. And then it would have to be posted.
Yes.
Schedule B?
Yes. Schedule C, actually.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you one question? So when we're looking at the licenses, how many students are you saying this is intended for?
It's for 20 students.
20.
Because at Bartle, that's a classroom requirement that it be 20 students or less.
Okay.
And the site license is, we'd have 8, for 20 students, we'd do 8 sets. So 8 computers, 8 Lego sets, 8 like secondary, sets with more pieces, 8 groups of kids.
Yeah, those are the expansion sets where you can do a little bit more for the children that are at that skill level, so you can really get from 2nd to 5th grade.
I think it's a great program. We've done programs like this in the district before and have had great success with them and great enrollment in them, and I hope we do approve something like this tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak?
Hello, Rob Ruslevich, 123 Magnolia Street. Am I permitted to ask a question too? Because you discussed, and unfortunately I think you waited until way too late to inform us that you were removing tracking by doing it at the beginning of the school year, already a month in. But I didn't hear any discussion. I think there's an enrichment and gifted program at Bartle also?
Currently, there's gifted and talented there's a 2nd grade class in its current format. And again, that's something that has been part of this review to make sure that this is expanded and available to all students.
Instead of removing it?
I'm sorry?
Instead of just removing it? Because one of the things that you kept talking about how the tracking has been shown to not actually work. And then the same research also shows that the gifted programs actually don't work either, because there's actually a benefit to keeping the kids who actually are gifted in with all the other kids in the classroom together, rather than pulling them out. You're saying that you want to have enrichment, which would sort of mirror tracking by taking these kids out of the classroom and leaving the kids that you would say aren't really challenged. So taking kids who are challenged, taking them out of the classroom and leaving the rest in the classroom, which sounds a lot like tracking to me, but without calling it tracking. So I don't know that you are actually looking at this thing in a big picture rather than going, all right, tracking doesn't work, we see the research, we're going to get rid of it, but we're going to keep gifted and talented. Whereas a lot of the research shows that gifted and talented isn't really that respectable either to all the students. If you want to enrich all the students, it might be more holistic and more in line with the research to keep all the kids in the same classroom. I don't know that I'm necessarily correct, but the research doesn't really mirror what you're talking about, because
Do you want a response?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're looking at, again, you're talking about a very small population at the top, and you can use the bell curve as the example. You're talking about the extremes, okay, that we're talking about addressing. Okay, this is not, and again, when you break down the numbers and we have, lots of students that are being listed as proficient, advanced, proficient, okay, but are being grouped according to these measures, there's a big concern about that. The way that they're being grouped is not leading to high achievement for all those students. That's significantly different than taking a small amount of time and providing this greater depth for a small population of students, not limiting, within the bandwidth as far as for all students. But again, you're talking about the very extremes of this population, okay, on either end. And the gifted and talented is on that end where you'd be looking at, again, activities for students. I'm saying that's being reviewed because currently we have it only for 2nd grade. So either we only have gifted 2nd graders or we haven't done anything to really establish a system from pre-K to 12.
Okay, but then, so the same sort of on the other end of the bell curve. You also have the teachers who are dedicated to the students that are on the other end that need the extra help.
That's again part of this review, to make sure that we're providing the neediest students, the students with the greatest deficiencies, significant support, okay? And that we will be implementing that as well. It's looking at both spectrums.
Okay, but that, how does that differ from tracking then?
Well, because tracking on the bell, when you're looking at a bell curve, okay, you're looking at not these extremes. You're talking about the
Each
majority
standard
of students.
deviation. Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
Go on.
Okay? That's what you're talking about. And so when you're trying to move students, we're trying to move the entire group as far to the right as we can. You're talking about, again, this enrichment and these activities for students. The conversation as far as how you do that in a classroom and how you allow them to learn these higher level standards and cycle them through those standards is different than the kind of activity you would do in a gifted and talented curriculum. And it's not per se saying that you wouldn't expose kids to it, but this is, again, the concept is it's an elite group that you're doing these very high level thinking opportunities with. And that's in a pull-out, not in a push-in situation, because you should be moving all those students as far as a cohort across the grade level span, meeting those standards, and then moving on. Again, you're making a comparison for general population to the less than 1% or the 1%.
Okay, but I would just counter that the 1% that should be concentrated on are probably the 1% who are on the other end of the bell curve that are having trouble, rather than the 1% who are gifted.
And the position I would take that every child deserves to get exactly what it is that they need, that we should be individualizing instruction for all of those children. Okay, we absolutely will be providing resources to those students on that other end of the spectrum to make sure that they move, because again, that is a concern. But I don't think that that's at the expense of the other students. I think everybody deserves it and has that right to learn as much as they can during their career.
Okay, and it's not just for the second grade, for all grades?
This is for all grades, yes.
Okay.
Again, I could be wrong, but I don't think that there's just a gifted population or just in a single grade level. I think we need to look at these things, and again, everything that we're doing right now in these evaluations is in a pre-K-12. How do we bring kids in the system? How do we teach them as much as they can, give them as many skills and as much content knowledge as they can, so that we can expand offerings at the high school level and move into those, create more opportunities upon graduation.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah McKinnon, 22 North 4th, and I just have a question for the board and for Bartle School. In looking at all the curriculum shifts, I'm curious if the specific curriculums for math have been looked at and considered to be changed to perhaps a more innovative math curriculum. And if it was considered, I'd be fully supportive of that happening mid-year, anytime, because I feel like my daughter's in 4th grade and I'd like her to learn all that she can this year. And also I know the language arts, the voices program that they're using, it seems like I've heard teachers talk that kind of might limit what they can do for the students. And so I'm curious if those programs have looked at and to be more innovative as well.
Yes, both the voices curriculum, the math curriculum. We just had a meeting today at Bartle where they sat down and the teachers were looking at, again, what are the standards? And again, when you have a curriculum shift and you have a shift in standards, the resources that may or may not have been aligned to the prior standards, it's pretty much guaranteed they're not going to be aligned to the new standards because there's a shift that's occurred. So you can't use old resources and just think that you can teach page 1 to page 100 in this order and think you're going to meet the needs of the kids and meet those standards. They're working hard right now trying to identify what are the critical gaps, what are the things that they need to do, and then it's going to be finding the resources that are going to fill in those gaps to, again, ensure that we're differentiating for student need and individualizing the instruction so that those students can move through the curriculum and learn as much as they can during their time here.
So for now, I just want to make sure I understand. It wouldn't be a change in it wouldn't be like leaving that math, the everyday math, but just supplementing it for now? Or perhaps finding like a whole new...
So
math curriculum?
So here's the problem with, a lot of these resources. If you have resources that were purchased before 2 years ago, okay, they're not aligned to the Common Core standards.
Right.
Okay? Are some of the standards aligned? Sure. Is there some carryover from one to the next? Yes. But they weren't written to be aligned to those standards. So essentially what you're looking at is that these are the standards that kids need to know. And then you're going to be matching those resources to identify what's the best way to instruct those students. And again, the teachers right now, are going to have flexibility as far as choosing resources. You don't have to use voices. There might be some things in voices that you use. There might not. It all depends on whether or not it meets the needs of those standards. The same is true to a certain extent with everyday math. It's not going to be aligned in the exact way. It's not going to be in the units of study that are being created. It's not going to be an exact match.
Okay.
So you have to be flexible as you move through that. You have to identify what the standard is. You have to back plan what the skills and previous content knowledge that was required beforehand, so that you can adequately meet those student needs. And the example I keep using is a math one because, again, there were standards that were in 5th grade that with the shift of Common Core moved down to 3rd grade. Okay, so a student in 3rd grade right now is going to be learning standards that last year's 5th graders were taught. Okay, well, there's a gap. There's a gap based on that realignment. And for our students to be successful and in order to perform where we want them to perform, they're going to have to be taught those standards, and we're going to have to identify what are the gaps in learning that were created by this shift, be able to fill in those gaps so the students can perform up to proficient.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Schofler. I live at 128 Hill Street.
Would you mind signing in, please?
Sorry?
Please sign in.
Sure. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm really amazed by the teachers the board has hired. My kids have had great teachers. Ms. Mamrak is still corresponding with my daughter 2 years after having her, and she was really terrific. I thought Ms. Botvinnik was fantastic. I've never come to a Board of Ed meeting before, and the reason why I'm here tonight is because I'm concerned about the tracking. It's basically, I'm worried because I think that there's a lot of different levels that these kids are at, and when I look at my daughter's friends, I see them at different levels. One of my daughter's friends she was having a tough time in math, so she spent a year at a lower level. She worked really hard at that level, and she worked her way up to just the normal standard math. I thought that worked out great for her. And I'm worried that she's not going to have that opportunity, or another kid wouldn't have that opportunity. On the other hand, there's other kids that are at the other extreme. My other daughter's friend, she's super bright. She was grilling my wife about Eleanor of Aquitaine, and I don't even know who Eleanor of Aquitaine is. So, I'm just trying to think how can we possibly deal with both of these kids if we're treating everybody exactly the same, if we're putting everybody into the same box, and we're kind of standardizing the education. This is a worry to me. I think we're lucky to have passionate teachers that are really working hard to try and teach all these kids in a way that works for every single one of them. And my worry is that that's going to be harder if we're preventing them from teaching kids who are at this level at that level, and kids that are at this level at that level as well. I think one of the really nice things about Highland Park is that we have just a lot of diversity in the people, in the kids. People are coming from different backgrounds. And I think that we need to really treat these kids as individuals instead of all being in 3rd grade or 4th grade. We need to really help kids that are at the top and challenge those kids. And we need to help the kids that are at the bottom and give them the help that they really need. I don't see how we can do this if we keep them all in the same place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
Meredith Carmen, 51 North Fifth Avenue. I just have a question about communication, because I feel up until today I didn't really know anything about this. That's the main reason why I came here today. I found out the most from my child, which is kind of a little disturbing to me. So, I'm all for them being informed on these things that are changing in their daily lives, but I think as a parent, my daughter's in 4th grade, and she still actually listens to what I say. So I could be a pretty good tool in sort of helping support this change, because she thinks she should still switch classes. So how do I express to her why this change is being made, and how do I support the change and get her excited about it? So as a parent, I just want to know that we're going to be included in the communication and be given information about what the change is, so that we can better inform our kids and ourselves as to why it's a good thing for us all.
And to respond to that, again, that was something that it wasn't meant for public release. It was something that was still occurring as far as a conversation with the teachers, because we weren't going to move anything, even the conversation forward, until we had the chance to meet with every grade level. Someone, shared it, was talking about it. It's my understanding, was excited about the fact that they were really going to be able to work with the group of kids and be able to meet their individual needs within the class and get to know them and be able to have flexibility in how they use their time and how it is that they address those needs. And I don't know exactly how that transpired, but it wasn't really at that point. There was no intention to have it until we had done this complete review. So again, I apologize for the communication. That's not what was intended. Actually, Ms. Frazier's letter that went home was when I found out that this was being discussed about with students and then to parents, and then we fielded a couple of phone calls. And then what we tried to do is make sure that people understood that this was being discussed, so that they were informed. Again, I mean, at this point, just apologize, but we certainly want people to be educated, be able to have some of the information so that you understand that this is the reason for the decisions, and we're going to be looking for feedback as we move forward, because this is something that you don't like to make changes mid-year. Certainly not in the first year, being someplace for any event. Again, I've only been here about 5 months, but this was such
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
I was about to
I'm
say.
sorry.
Yeah.
It feels like 5 years.
It is. So, but yeah, 5 weeks. And but when I talked with the teachers and when we started looking at the data and started to really delve into it, the decision essentially I had to make was, are we going to go through a year knowing that we have these gaps and that that potentially this practice is going to take us further away from where we need to be, or again, because they've already been left in homerooms, is this the opportunity to kind of address it at this point? The teachers have been working with them, assessing their students, identifying what their strengths and weaknesses are, and make that change now, really empower the teachers at this point to move ahead and be able to flesh out the rest of this change. And so, again, this was something that's been done methodically. I wanted to make sure we had all this information. But again, I just, it's gotten to the point where I just don't have anything that I can lay out that says that this has been good for the kids of Highland Park. And that's, I had to look at it and say, do we make this decision now, or do we wait 8 months and put kids through a system that we know is flawed? And if we're truly going to maximize all student learning, and if we truly want to give them those opportunities, then that's the decision that you have to make.
I don't disagree with you. I just want to be informed.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuart Shapiro, 201 South. There we go. Stuart Shapiro, 201 South 2nd. One question that's a follow-up on what you were just saying. I was wondering what thought's been given to managing the transition to this new system. We were at back to school night at Bartle less than 2 weeks ago, and at that point everybody was, we're going to do tracking, there's going to be tracking, et cetera, and then obviously this whole thing comes out and blows up, and it leads me to wonder what preparation are the teachers going to have and get for doing something different, not only that they've done the previous X number of years, but that they were expecting to do differently probably up until a couple of weeks ago. So what resources and principles are going to be followed as this transition takes place? And then one other quick question, which is, how are you going to measure whether or not this new system works?
So again, as far as the transition, we do have a professional development plan that we'll be moving into as far as Monday, because a lot of the state initiative that's coming right now as far as student growth objectives is based on how do you set measures for every individual child. So this is a little bit in line with what that practice is, individualizing instruction and having those measures in place. So every teacher will have 2 measures by which it is that they're measuring all students. This has become part of the conversation, and the timing, like I said, was tied to this conversation about report cards. We send out report cards 4 times a year, and I don't know how meaningful they are to parents. What does it truly say about what your student has learned? How have they spent their time? What are they proficient in? What have they actually learned over the course of that year? Because and so this was tied in as if that's truly our measure, and we're saying that there are minimum standards, and that's what standards are. They are minimum standards, not maximums. This is the least amount that every student should learn over the course of a year. And so we're looking at how it is that we put that together. The teachers that we have are excited. All the ones that have talked to me are talking about how it is that they're going to be able to differentiate, how it is that they're going to be able to build these assessments and build these things out. We have resources that haven't been utilized. And they haven't been utilized because, from what I hear from teachers, they weren't allowed to. That they weren't allowed to go outside of the voices dictated box. This is the program and you run the program. And that doesn't take into consideration what it is that children need. So again, what we're trying to put together is we're trying to put together a system where the curriculum aligns with the assessments and standards that are being measured, that the instructional practices are back planned to meet those specific objectives, and that it's scaffolded for all different students. And so when you're talking about how we're going to measure it, we're going to have data sets on a classroom level based on student to say, how are they performing? How are they learning? How much are they learning? How quickly? And I think that the piece about tracking where you're separating kids out into the classroom is significantly different than flexible grouping within a class. Because we have professionals. Those professionals make on a daily basis who has strengths and weaknesses in specific concepts. And when they do that, they're saying this is going to allow them to move ahead. And if a student progresses at a faster rate, maybe in the group lesson, then they can move into that higher group. Where with tracking, that's not the case. They're locked in. They don't have the ability when you're moving within that track. So it's a very different concept. But at the end of the day, at the end of this year, we should be able to have a set of assessments that measure those standards. We should be able to see progressions in them. We're going to be able to track that according to the math and the English standards. The report card should be meaningful and should reflect what students have learned. So it is a communication tool with parents where you know how it is that your kids have spent their time and what the purpose was. And then from that, there should be an alignment between that and what the measures from the state are. So that alignment process is significant. It is. But that's the end objective, because without that, you might as well be throwing a dart at the wall. Okay? You don't know exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. You don't have those set objectives. And there's a limiting factor within the current system that we felt that this was really going to free teachers to use their professional discretion to make those judgments and to be able to individually track those students. So, the concept of equal and equity, those aren't necessarily the same things, okay? We're not looking at a situation where we say, equal, if you have 60 minutes and 20 kids, every kid gets 3 minutes of time with the teacher. That may be equal, but that's not equity, because there are different student needs that everybody needs and should get what it is that they deserve. And, as you go up in grade levels, the need of students varies. As you go from subject to subject, the needs of students vary. And, it's even reflected in, what the state measures are, to the fact that, for teachers to be highly effective, they're able to work independently. They're able to think independently. They're able to, put these concepts, and apply them into other forums. They're able to, move from subject to subject and apply similar concepts. That's actually a measure now that's been set by the state in their evaluations to determine whether teachers are highly effective or not. And that's because it's about student learning. It's not about the teachers teaching. And so all of those components should be in alignment at the end of this year, where we'll be able to make good predictions moving forward, which means when we start next year, we'll have a base, we'll be able to have a data set of, we put this system in place, we're going to be able to track that moving forward, and we'll be able to see what those results are. Like I said, my concern in all this is that, from where we are right now, which I don't think is reflective of student capability or staff capability, I think that we can do a much better job. And I think that even though this is going to be imperfect, okay, it's not going to be a perfect system moving through the year, I still believe it's in the best interest of children, and we'll have greater gains and greater success, knowing that the new assessment standards and the new assessment itself, that there's going to be a change there. And nationally, when schools have moved or states have moved to the Common Core standards, you see in New York and in Virginia, you saw 30% declines. Okay, so when you move to the Park assessment the following year, the thing that's going to be most important for us as far as a benchmark of success is where it is that we rank. Okay, it's going to be percentile rank, because you're not going to be able to use scale score, and you're not going to be able to use proficiency rates. Okay, it's going to be based on what is the overall performance within that district and how does it compare to the other kids that are being educated around the state.
Can I make a friendly suggestion that you incorporate some parental feedback into the assessment a year from now?
Absolutely. We're going to do it this year as well.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Catherine Pelicane, 208 Valentine Street. I have 2 children at Bartle, and I can appreciate the observing and the analyzing of the data. I am a curriculum resource teacher in Edison, and I do that almost on a weekly basis. My only concern is that we're looking at homogeneous grouping as the only factor, and there are many other factors that contribute to our children not scoring as they should. Scheduling-wise, our children do not have enough time on task in reading, writing, and math. Also, staff development needs to increase, I believe, in our district for our teachers, especially if we're expecting them to differentiate instruction. That takes a ton of time. Also, co-planning periods. Our teachers need to be able to plan together if we expect this new system to work. Also, in terms of curriculum, we've already talked about the Voices program. We also have no program for writing, which I brought up last year several times. I think that we need to truly look at what our children are writing every day, and are they spending enough time on writing? Are they writing enough? My child last year in 3rd grade only wrote a paragraph. And I believe that that is not enough to succeed as a 3rd grader. So I'm hoping, moving forward, that we're not only just looking at homogeneous to fix all these problems, but we're looking at the big picture, that there are many factors at Bartle that we need to look at and remediate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Would you give us the curriculum committee report, please?
I've been sold out.
curriculum committee did not meet tonight, but we have like to move items 2 through 8 on the agenda and number 9 on the addendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a question about number 5, the dissertation research. Does any, I think we read about that recently, but I don't remember what it is. Does anybody know?
We reported out on it at the last meeting. We did report out on it at the last meeting because Karen brought it to us, and now I don't recall exactly what it was, but we discussed it at the last meeting. And I don't have that agenda with me, so.
What kind of question do you have?
What is it this James is going to do? What's he researching?
Student placement process in elementary school.
Right, thank you. I read that too. I don't know what that means. So what data is he going to be using, or what?
I'll be in line.
Again, I mean, I wasn't at the curriculum committee, but this is an interesting conversation piece, based on where it is that we currently are. So I have not met with him individually. That went through the assistant superintendent, and I believe that even preceded my arrival here as far as this being in the works.
And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a procedure on what data they can take and not take out of the district. We have laws and rules that we follow in regards to that.
Do you know what it is?
It's no student, they won't.
They can't have
yeah.
student identities. It's all,
Yeah.
and it's aggregate data, I believe, as opposed to individual data, because it's a small enough district so that individual data could actually be extrapolated to identify students with.
But plus, that would be embargoed. You're not allowed to release, and that would be a confidentiality issue. So they can't have anything that has student identification of any sort.
We abide by all those rules, and we've allowed people to do dissertations here before, and the curriculum committee reviews each one meticulously.
I'm just curious about this one. I just was trying to get more information.
Sorry.
We reported out more information last time, but that's why, so the stuff that we reported on last time ends up on the agenda this time, but I offhand cannot remember. Sorry. I'm sure Karen has the information and can get it to you if you want to shoot her an email.
Don't go out that door.
Is it something I said?
I don't know. You can ask them.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, I have a question on number 7, I'm sorry. Was that, I don't remember that being talked about last time, to be honest with you. It's the school safety plan, and the plan was not in the agenda for this week. And it looks like it's only dealing with the middle school as well.
This is based on the report that we shared the last time, that it was identified based on a number of offenses. And so it has to be submitted to the county office for approval.
Okay, so this is not changing the plan, this is submitting the plan that we already have?
Well, it wasn't required until now, so it's submitting a plan that identifies how it is that they're going to address those areas of need.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Sorry. One more.
Yep.
The Teen Center SAT program, I talked about this a while ago. I would love to maybe be able to see that run at a later hour to allow people who participate in sports and extracurricular activities to be able to participate in the program as well. I know it might not be possible for this time, but it's something to look to in the future, especially with the time that this happens. A lot of our football and basketball programs are ongoing. And at one point, when I was here, we did have that ability it was at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, where we had one in the morning, or one right after school, and one later on for all of our students to participate, especially some of those students who most need to play sports after school. That's it.
I have a question about number 8. the after-school science program at Bartle, is that different from the Lego?
Yes.
It's what Joanna just.
It's what Joanna.
Right, I know
speaking
that.
to.
I know that's what she talked
Yeah.
about. Is it connected? Because she mentioned a
No.
grant.
No.
So this is a second science-oriented after-school program at Bartle
That's correct.
that will have different students?
Yes. They're two separate programs.
And we know we have that enough interest just to get enough kids in both programs?
The other program is just being discussed at this point.
The what?
The Lego program is being discussed at this point.
The program that Dr. Bernstein presented students have actually received, I think, handouts, flyers to sign up, and so the deadline to sign
Jess,
up.
sorry, Mike, please.
Sorry, students have definitely already received permission slips to sign up for the program that's on the agenda tonight that Dr. Bernstein was presenting, and so students are signing up for that now. And I can tell you anecdotally, I know that there's a lot of interest.
And the Lego program is still in discussion because we were looking at the finances. We asked for that at the last board meeting. So this is now moving forward and will be up for discussion at the next meeting.
We're not planning on moving Lego tonight?
Well, it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Also, they wouldn't necessarily run simultaneously. They could actually run sequentially, because one is 10 weeks, and I think that you envision the Lego as a 10-week program too. So, it could be one after the other.
It was just a question.
Yes. Any other questions? Could we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Pointer-Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Could we have the Finance Committee report, Adam?
Yes. The Finance Committee did not meet tonight. I'm going to be tabling one item for further Finance Committee discussion. That would be item number 8. Do I move everything and then table? Do I just not move it?
Move items 2 through 7 and 9 through the end.
Okay, so that's what I will do. There are a few change orders on there, and I want to let everybody know that the Bartle Auditorium has now been complete, and there are just 1 or 2 final punch list items for the high school auditorium. And the grand opening, save the dates have gone out to all of the people who have donated towards the project. And once we find out how many people from that group have RSVP'd, we are going to make a determination of how widely else we're going to distribute the invitation.
Are you sure there was an I got that. And are you sure there was an RSVP in there?
Yes. We already have received RSVPs and an invitation. That was just the save the date. A formal invitation will be going out as well.
Okay.
I reviewed the save the date, so I'm pretty sure there was, and we have received RSVPs already. Okay. But it's going to be a student-centric event. Mickey Landis, Tim, and myself met. We're going to be showcasing so many of our students' talents, and many of them are excited to see it, and we're hoping that everybody will come out to that. So with that, I'd like to move items 2 through 7 and 9 through 11.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Pointer-Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Chandra, could we have the Personnel Committee report, please?
So personnel did not meet as well. I'm going to start by striking item 3. And I'd like to move 2, and then 3 through 8.
4 through 8.
I'm sorry, 4 through 8, yes, sorry, 4 through 8. And 9 through 13 on the addendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Could we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Pointer-Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Sherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
And is there a policy committee report?
No, there is not.
Fine.
And there's nothing to move.
I just, well, never mind, I'll do that under old business. For the president's report, I think you all would have gotten the email, a letter concerning the Student of the Month breakfast, which is tomorrow morning at 7:15 in the Media Center. I don't know that the board has been represented at this for a couple of years. And I'm going to try to get there tomorrow. It's a tough time. I know everybody's trying to get to work, but it is, it's good to have a presence at this event. It culminates in the Student of the Year banquet in May. And it's nice to acknowledge the achievements of the students, whether it be academic or, being a good citizen, or they're recognized by their teachers for accomplishments. The other thing I wanted to mention was I was speaking to a council person at Arts in the Park, and talking about the Highland Park, whatever it is, it's the newspaper. It used to be the Highland Park Quarterly. It's the one print edition thing that goes to every household in the borough. And we used to have a whole page in this thing. The school would have the whole page. We'd talk about the budget and what was going on in the schools. And so we're encouraged to actually put something together, a full page in that for the spring. We've kind of missed the deadline for the fall. But I really, because it reaches everybody, it's really a great opportunity. We've talked here about how we can't really afford to put something out ourselves, probably. So I wanted to, for people to keep in mind that this is going to come up in the spring, and I assume we'd have a letter from the superintendent and from the president of the board, and talk about the budget. Even though people are not voting on it, I think they need to know how the budget's constructed, what goes into it, how the schools are running. And some other, things that have happened in the school over the course of the year. So I'd kind of like to give that to the Personnel and Communication Committee to keep an eye on, just to kind of remind the board of, and maybe we can get different members too.
It's Matt Hirsch who's putting it together. I
Yes.
actually had a long talk with him at the Arts.
Oh, you
and Park.
did? I didn't see Matt there.
So he said he was, he was very interested. But yeah, so just sort of being sort of directly in touch with him, I think, would be the easiest and most expeditious thing for the personnel committee. He's very amenable. I think he would be willing to, if you gave him the salient points, he might even be willing to do the writing.
He's a very good writer.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. And the only other thing I wanted to say, which is more to the people who might be looking at viewing from home, is as you may have seen from the discussion tonight, there's a lot of change going on in the district right now. We have a superintendent who came in 5 weeks or 5 months ago, who is just bringing a fresh pair of eyes to everything that we've been doing for forever. And looking at entrenched procedures and patterns, and he sees a different way of doing things, and his main interest is in benefiting the children of this district. So things are getting shook up, and this will go on for a while. And so I think I ask for some patience, and also please don't hesitate to be involved in the process, and bring your ideas to the superintendent, who, as he has said, his door is open. And to the board, if you need to email or come to the board meetings. We want parents to be a part of the process, and we need to hear about everybody's concerns, because as things get kind of churned up, all sorts of stuff is coming up, and we need to sort it out. But I will remind everyone, too, that if it has to do with your own child, that we still ask that you follow the same, everything has to do with your own child in the school, but if there's something between the child and the teacher, then you need to go to the teacher, and then if that doesn't work out, you go to the principal. So there is a chain of command, but when we're dealing with these big issues, please bring your concerns forward. Okay. Is there any old business? Oh, I did have something. The policy, the personnel policy, I have lost track of what happened with, that we had a whole packet, and I assume that we're dealing with that next time. Is that correct? Okay.
We wanted to make sure you had ample time to review it.
To review it,
It was pretty thick.
Yes.
Also, the curriculum committee will be looking at the technology policy. Last time we just.
That's great.
Tonight.
That was my other question. Okay, terrific. And I'm checking out how everybody likes this setup. What do you think? The paperless business
Great.
here?
I think Susan did a great job.
Susan and Brian.
Yes.
But, so I wonder, is it okay do we have to use this device, or can we use our own devices? Is that all right?
It's a Brian question.
Well, I mean, I can look at all of this on my iPad. I don't need the Chromebook.
As long as you have a login, you can access it from anywhere,
Right.
as far as the board docs. So if you're more comfortable on a different device, unless there's an objection, I don't see where that is an issue. Again, we're just looking at the efficiency and making sure that everybody can get to it. And, again, for our purposes here, as long as you can get on to the internet connection, you can log in and get that information.
Okay.
Anybody else? Opinions? Everybody's happy. Any other old business? Is there any new business? Okay. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved the time for your comments. Does anybody want to speak? Okay. We need a resolution to go into executive session immediately following this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we need a resolution to go into executive session at 6:30 p.m. on October 21st at the middle school to discuss personnel, litigation, and negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Is all in favor?
Aye.
And motion to adjourn?
Inside.
Oops, I have to do that from inside. Sorry. Thank you.